Very cool. Do you know what I just realized with inviting our guests here today? That we're actually all joined by the Pacific Ocean right now. So we're in Costa Rica on the Pacific Ocean. Ronnie is in Hawaii, and Michelle is in Tasmania. So we've all got the Pacific Ocean just there. So we're all connected by water.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sweet. Cool. So it's really cool because I've actually got these two mums here with us. Ronnie is from Canada, and she has a blog that her and her son, who are still house sitting right now, and on the journey of travel. You have some blogs over at 𝗣𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 which is an awesome domain name. And Michelle and family did 18 months of traveling around the world, incorporating house sitting, and they blogged, making the kids all blog as well on upsticksandgo.com. But Michelle actually is an online coach, and you can reach her at mission-mojo.com as well. But we'll have all the links underneath the video. So really the big question, or the topic that we want to talk about with you ladies, is you've got this experience of house sitting with children, which actually means that you get house sits with children. So many
weird. Amazing.
So many people in these Facebook groups that we've been involved in have all kind of, they come along and they're like, oh, no, surely we can't house sit if we've got kids. So you guys are here to kind of
let's bust that myth.
Yeah.
We do.
So can you tell us, let's start with the person closest to us is Hawaii right now. So Ronnie, can you tell us pretty much how long you've been traveling and how old your son is? And
okay, we started traveling in 2013, May actually, and my son was 7 then, and he's 11 now. And initially, it might have been a little bit hard to break through, but it's normally, that's the way it is for anyone. You just have to put out so many applications. But I've actually sort of, certain applications when they say, well, not suitable for kids, I'll turn around and say, well, my son is really good with kids, like with animals, and he is, we're quiet, we're not, just, rambunctious and something. And we've gotten few sits that way. And people say, well, I never really thought about it.
Okay, well done.
My kid is not a baby. My kid is older and is a little bit more responsible. So, and this is teaching him responsibility. And we've gotten to house sits that way.
Good on you for pushing back on that.
Yeah. First tip, there you go. Keep moving and keep pushing forward. Perhaps challenging the homeowners about if they say not suitable for kids.
Well, this is it. It's like what age? They don't specify an age. Most people are saying, well, it's not, their house is not good for a baby, maybe.
Yeah, or a toddler.
Yeah. When you start getting into like the 6, 7, 8-year-olds, I'm sorry, a lot of them can handle it.
Yes. Yeah. And how many house sits will you have done so far, do you think?
I have no idea. I've never counted.
Wow, there you go. Has it been mainly house? Okay, answer this. Is it been mainly house sitting, or have you been mixing it up with other sorts of travel as well?
I mix it up because in some cases, depending on what the house sit is, the responsibility, it means you can't really go out exploring enough depending on what you want to do. Sure. So I'll mix it up, because house sitting is responsibility, looking after the animals. Yes. And in some cases, Dylan is the one who's had all the responsibility. So it's a matter of, okay, then I have to, make some fun time in there too.
Yeah, balance it out.
Have fun.
Well, I think what's really cool though as well, because you're a single mom traveling with Dylan as well. So it's like not just the solo female traveler, but traveling with your very capable young man who is actually now providing some great help for you to be able to kind of share the responsibilities as if you're a couple. But as you say, it's teaching him a lot as well.
Yes. This is it. And it's what he can put down on the animals he's looked after are rather interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Awesome.
And now we go from sort of the solo mum with her son to the tribe.
To the Frosty Fruit tribe.
The team type of thing. So how did it go with getting house sits with 5 of you?
Yes, we did get that pushback a lot from people when they found out we were house sitting. It was like, well, how are you expecting, you not only do you have a child, or you have children, you have 3 that you're expecting, to be able to go and and live in someone's house, and so they're going to have the right space. And of course, as you know, when you go house sitting, there are many occasions where you don't actually sleep in the homeowner's bed, but they'll have a guest area, and you actually just sleep in the guest rooms or the spare room or their, you know, their old children's room or something. And we actually had no trouble at all, to be honest. And I think when I've had these conversations with people who are struggling with house sitting and finding house sits, there is house sits that are perfect for everybody. So for us, we were lucky enough to get a car when we landed in Europe. So we were able to go to things that were just a little bit outside the city. So often they weren't places that somebody who was either a solo house sitter or even a couple, sometimes without driver's licenses or that sort of, not having to worry about that in other countries, we could actually take those positions that were further afield. And there's often a lot of people out there wanting help, but there isn't, and there's nowhere near as much competition as the house sitter looking for places. So we found that quite easy, not to mention because we had a website which had videos of all of us talking, where I made the children write and actually be on video because I'm an awful mother, that they actually felt like, well, this is interesting. They would go and have a look at the website. They maybe knew us a little bit as well. So it wasn't such a, you know, these Australian family is going to come and you know,
take you over.
land on our doorstep, and they kind of knew us.
When you actually took off from Australia and you did around Australia first, then Asia, but and you know, everyone definitely read the stories on upsticksandgo.com, but the age that the kids were is really quite interesting, because your eldest is kind of like you really ripped her out of school, and she wasn't overly excited about that, was she?
Well, I think it was leaving her friends. They all three of them were quite happy to leave school, strangely. When we left in 2014, we had, 10 and 12 and 14 they were then, and so now they're all 2 years older than that. So they were all actually quite happy. So they've all missed a year and a half of school by the time we came back. But once we started going, the only thing they really whinged about was me requiring them to write a blog once a week. And then, of course, the teenager, the oldest girl, really wanted to come home eventually. And now, as Nat and Jodie will tell you, she's actually the one who wants to. She was here for a month. I've now caught up with all of my friends and all of the gossip. I now want to travel again. So they certainly get that travel bug under their skin, don't they, when they want to go. But, we had no trouble, though, house sitting with the kids. In fact, it's a bonus in many cases because there's lots of animals. I'm not sure. I'm sure Ronnie probably finds that as well. We ended up with places where they had not just a cat or a dog. They had horses and chooks and, you know.
Multiple animals to be looked after. So I think a family is awesome, especially an older family is awesome for that. Yeah. Some great tips there. I think having a blog, as you say, was a really good idea because people could actually see who you were. And you've also got that too, Ronnie, where people can actually go on and actually look and go, wow, they are real. This is what they're doing. I can read all about them and stuff. I think that's an awesome way of doing it. And looking for sits with multiple animals. I think there's another really good tip there as well.
And I know that it was a case of taking the kids out of school for Michelle, but they did do some curriculum through the Tasmanian Education sort of in the last part of the last 6 months or so. But Ronnie, you're still going. Are you actually doing full homeschooling with Dylan? Or?
Basically, yes. In Canada, well, in Ontario anyway, we have no requirements specific. Basically, what will happen is when he goes back to school, he'll have to write a test and get placed. So what I have done is a couple of years ago, I reached out to Jennifer Miller. You may not know her. She's Canadian-American, 4 kids that went traveling all the time. 2 of them are at university now, totally homeschooled. She's a teacher.
Yes.
And she does educational consultations, basically. And I had her help set up a plan for Dylan at his age, programs and everything else, so that he had a schedule that he knew he had to follow. This was what it was. And we went from there. And so this is what it takes. So it's only a couple hours, depending on his mood, how he wants to do it. And then he's got the rest of the day. So we can go and do whatever or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that when Michelle pointed out about being a little bit more rural, because they did have the car to get around, and it was great because the animals, like having horses and other animals. But all of us have actually house sat at the same place, a very, very remote property in Greece. What I would like to know, and I know that because we actually did overlap with Michelle and the family for a couple of days, and you know, having 3 kids, they've got friends, like they've got each other, and we would see the boys running around together, and you know, the Tash would definitely be more into reading her books and stuff, but the boys had each other. And at Dylan's age, like in a really remote property like that, how did he go with, and have you been on other remote properties?
Dylan actually, he's really good at making friends, and he doesn't care what age they are. Okay. So he had Alex playing chess.
Oh.
He had Alex playing soccer. He had Alex playing basketball.
Yeah, Alex is a grown man too, by the way.
Oh, yeah, Alex is fabulous.
With us.
But there was so Delania in that respect, in the remote properties, there's so much more space that he can go exploring.
Yeah.
So there's more to it. So in that respect, it's easier. So this is why in some cases, just going traveling and being in the city is not as fun because he's housebound. Okay. And there's not necessarily. So the remote properties are actually funner, even though they don't necessarily, he doesn't necessarily have a playmate. Because he's quite into the animals. I mean, he looked after Tardu. He looked after all the chickens. Public was, you know, seriously looked after, followed, I mean, everywhere.
Dog. Yeah.
Yeah. The cats, I mean, he just, so that was not, I mean, the remote properties for him are ideal because it, in a way, it brings out the creativity too.
Yeah,
it does. And that's what we really noticed spending time, because we did come and house sit, or we came and visited your house sit, Michelle, in Rome, or just outside of Rome. And that's what we really noticed with the kids, because we had actually seen them previously in Greece, and it was some time after that we caught up with you again in Rome. And just how much creativity that had actually brought out in that time that you had been traveling since we had seen you, and how much more creative the kids actually were and doing all sorts of fun projects and stuff. So how did you find that the kids changed throughout the time, the 18 months that you went away?
The youngest one actually has a learning disorder, whereas it has an audio processing disorder. So school is actually, or classroom is one of the worst environments for him to learn, because the teacher's always talking, and he will hear one thing and he'll do that, but he's not really sure why everyone else is still doing stuff, because he's only doing this one thing. And so for him to be able, he's very hands-on, and he's very project sort of based. And if he gets really excited about something, he'll do it until he's a master. So he, as you would have known, and he bothered you a lot with things like magic tricks, and he taught himself how to play the piano while we're away. I mean, we didn't have a piano in our backpack, but he managed to use the like a piano keyboard on the iPads, and then if we were in a train station or an airport or a mall or somewhere where they had a public piano, and he's not a particularly gregarious child, but he will sit there and play the piano in front of everyone. He has no problem at all, because he taught himself particular songs like For Elise and things, and he'd watch it on YouTube, teach himself how to do it, and memorize it. He'd probably never be able to learn how to play music from a traditional music teacher, just because he doesn't learn that way. They would have to teach him some real hands-on sort of way.
Yes.
So we found for him that, and then the middle son, Benjamin's quite a technical boy. And again, because we're able to give him, he decided he had an interest in stop-start motion movie making. So we signed him up to a course online where they did it intensively for 2 weeks, I think, and he had projects to hand in every day. And because he was just fascinated by it and really interested, he grabbed his younger brother, Sebastian. He became the actor. And next thing I know, Sebastian's rolling downstairs and Ben's filming it all, and then they stick it all together, and they ended up making, I think when you guys were with us in Rome at one stage, they were jumping on and off tables and then recording it, but they stuck it all together in great little movies with using the stop-start thing that he learnt. Now, in a traditional education setting in the Western world, the children don't get that time to concentrate on any one thing.
Mm.
They have to go, they're split, even at school, they're split between all the different lessons, and then after school they're doing 300 other things, and then at the end of the week they're exhausted and they want to collapse, but no, now they've got to go out and do sport and do home, you know, so that we very rarely give children that kind of time. So what I've found is that it's been very good for them, very educational, which sounds weird because they didn't have a traditional education in that sense. And I'm sure Ronnie understands what I'm saying. So much so now that all three of them, after missing a whole year and a half of school, Natasha, the older one who's gone into our grade 10, has been, every term I've received a letter from the school saying she's at the top of her class. And Benjamin's doing just as well, and Sebastian's doing as well, better than he was when we left.
Right.
So, and the teachers have actually said to Natasha, oh, I don't know what you did when you're away, but this isn't supposed to happen. You haven't been here for a year and a half. Grade 9's supposed to be the hardest year. Yeah. Nobody's really taught you much, and yet you're, you know, so far ahead of everyone else. So, yeah, so a lot of people stress about it, but don't.
A lot to be said for world schooling, though, and just living life. And that's what I'm really getting from both of you now, is just that being out and about, living life, seeing other cultures, meeting other people and stuff like that is just, I don't know, to me, you just can't go past that sort of education that we miss out on in our traditional sense.
Okay, I do have a burning question, because both of you are actually mums of adult kids as well. So Michelle's a mother of 5, and Ronnie, you're the mother of 3. Did you say 3?
Yes.
Okay, so your travels have been with the younger ones, but with that wisdom of hindsight of like a lot of mothering time here, you're both too young to have adult children, but obviously you still do, so that's fine. But if you were in the position of, say, some of these young families that are looking at travelling when their children are preschool age, so anything from baby through to before they start school, if you had had the opportunity, or if you got to do it again, would you do it with littlies?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why
Probably
would
never
you,
even send them to school, actually.
Well, I figured. Well, it's kind of funny because I kind of blocked my older kids from taking a week off because I figured it was going to interfere with their schooling and everything else. And now I realize it probably would have done them far, far better if I had. And it's just like, and you look at it, it's like I used to wonder about, you know, the schools, and at the end of the school, especially in Europe, European schools, more so than Canada, they'll have these classes and they'll go to other countries and everything else, the whole trip and everything. I can see the benefit of it, but I think it would be more beneficial if you went as a family exploring far more than, you know, then they can go with their mates and carry on. But far more value, because it's life skills. There's so much more into it, I think, now. Seeing it.
Okay.
I mean,
and from the house sitting perspective as well, like if you only had littlies, like let's say your little kids are kind of a bit more, I mean, Michelle did mention about jumping off tables there before. I'm not sure I'll get her to house sit my house. But when you've got the little toddlers and stuff, and it's sort of like they're inquisitive, they want to get into things. Do you think you could teach them? And we have heard from other, Erin Bender from Travel with Bender, she started traveling when her kids were really little. So
and
it was that, and house sitting, it was that education of, this is other people's stuff. So how do you feel about that, like moving into something else?
I think I still would, because it's a matter of, it's no different than your own home when they're growing up, and the fact that, okay, they have to understand what they can't touch, what they can touch, what thing. It's no different.
Yeah, true.
I mean, we all take the responsibility when we house it. If something breaks, we're going to replace it. So I look at it as being as it's no different. Yeah. And if anything, it would be a bigger learning experience because it's someone else's place. Yeah. It's not your own, because we get complacent when it's our own. Whereas
someone else's. Yeah.
Take more care of it.
Actually, that's a good point. I want to bring up with Michelle's kids being a little bit older. Do you think that they got a different appreciation of other people's stuff, and even sort of, I guess, even that materialistic side of things, instead of having all the things that they would normally have at home, they were making do with what they had?
Yeah. Well, just to clarify the table jumping thing, that wasn't inside. That was at a park outside. Didn't even belong to the homeowner. Anyway,
thank you. Safe.
And just the other, to go back to if I had little children, well, there are plenty of families. In fact, we house sat for families who had little children. So if I'd taken my little child, they already had the pen set up and the gates set up. And so there are homeowners for me as a mother of little children, just as there are homeowners for me as a mother of older children as well, i.e. the ones with lots of animals and things. So it's a target market sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, so what was the question again?
The question was about, I guess, the appreciating other people's things and respecting, maybe not even, like, even the kind of materialistic sort of side of things.
Got something to say about that. Respect for people's property.
Oh, yes, we do want to talk about that. We will get there.
Well, materialistic, like we've been home now for a year tomorrow or the next day.
Oh, wow.
And I know, how quickly has that gone? So all of our things were packed into a room in our house. They're still there because we've been living at our family beach house, and mostly with only a few more things beyond what we went away with a year and 2.5 years ago now. So our children have not regathered things, and when they've said they wanted more clothes, I'm like, oh, you do have some of those at home. Oh, maybe we'll just go to the op shop, or we'll go, like, if you really need it, rather than gathering more things. And even they have said to us, I don't actually think we need a lot of the things that are in those boxes under the house. So it's going to be an interesting process for us in the next couple of months as we do have a look at that. But the respect for other people's property is, I think, probably a very valuable lesson that they learn. And I think we didn't have any trouble with our children at all in other people's houses. And in fact, I think it actually does teach them. Like, if you just go to a hotel or some holiday place, you don't even bother cleaning up because someone's going to come in and clean up after you. But instead, they saw us, I don't know how many house sits we did, maybe more than a dozen. They saw us running around that last day or two before it was time to, not to mention taking a photo of what the contents of the fridge the first day to make sure that everything that we replaced, even though they tell you you can have whatever you like, we still have to replace, because it's respect, and it's respect. It's like that kind of thing. And so we did model that, and I think they learned a lot from that experience.
Okay, so where we want to move to now briefly, because this is actually a topic that we had previously discussed with another couple. I would like to know, Ronnie, have you got a home base still, or are you completely nomadic now?
We've been completely nomadic since the November of 2013.
Excellent. Yay. Congratulations.
We're
homeless.
And this is what we tell. And it's like, people ask, it's like, well, when it comes right down to it, we're homeless Canadians.
That's awesome.
Homeless by choice.
Homeless by choice, that's it. So if I can just quickly frame the experience that Michelle's going through at the moment, which is absolutely heartbreaking because it's not the first time. Having upped and left Australia for the big 18-month trip, the kids did have to go back to school. It's sort of part of the reason why they did go back as well. But renting the house out, on 2 occasions now, they have been left with a destroyed house. And we had a conversation with a retired couple. Excuse us for 1 second. Hey, come on.
We're at the house. So.
We had
live house sitting.
We had a conversation with a retired couple who had actually, not that they had a really, really bad experience like Michelle's had, and she'll explain in a minute, but they actually made the decision that they would prefer to have house sitters in their house in future than to be having paid tenants, because there's some kind of like almost, how do you call it, when somebody pays for something, it feels that they have a right to...
It's like an entitlement, I guess. When you, I think, there's a feeling of when you rent somewhere that, well, I'm entitled to this place and to do whatever I like with it because I'm paying. with the house sitter, and I really feel that we all embrace this a lot, and we've touched on it, is, I don't know, just that feeling of respect, because I'm in somebody else's space, I'm in their home, I'm, you know, using their stuff. I will totally respect that as a house sitter. And it's just really different mentality.
And I think it's so inspiring that you guys have done this house sitting thing with your kids, because as you say, these are lessons that are going into their life of how to respect other people's property, how to engage with animals and, you know, other people and other cultures without judgment. Michelle, can you just tell us a little bit about this happening again now, just from a cost perspective of what you've got to go through?
So we actually had some great tenants the first year and a bit that were away, but just before we came home, it was rented out to some people who didn't do a very good job of looking after it, and they also stopped paying rent and all that. Anyway, we got rid of those, and then the next lot came in about 7 months ago, and although they sort of seemed to be fine on the surface, although they did have some income issues and things like that, they kept saying, oh, yes, we live up to our responsibilities and we'll look after it and da-da-da-da. Anyway, it turns out that after 6 weeks of not paying rent and we had to evict them, and then they promised to clean up, and even her job is a cleaner. I'm not sure that the vacuum cleaner has ever hit the carpet in 7 months. And they had 3 dogs in there, and the thickness of the fur that's been on the carpet, and every wall is filthy. Now, between the 2 tenants, the 2 bad tenants, we actually spent about a month cleaning out the house, Simon and I, and washing every wall and, you know, cleaning the carpets and cleaning out all of the rubbish that they had left, and painting a lot. We did a lot of painting in that time. And now every surface is basically black with mud and stuff and whatever the animals have left behind and the kids. And not to mention there's a bit of not very nice drug paraphernalia we found in one room, which got us a little bit anxious. And it was just, I don't know. For me, a lot of it is, as you were talking about respect, I actually talked to these people a lot, and they were very, very much into how they were going to look after it. And it seemed to be, I mean, I'm not actually a particularly house proud. It doesn't have to be shiny, you know, magazine worthy house, but just a little bit of respect was all I would have appreciated. And so, as you said, the next time we go away, I'm quite keen to actually have house sitters come in rather than, and they can look after our cat and dog. And
that's right. And I feel that sometimes it is a case of asking yourself when you're going to go house sitting, is maybe ask that question, could I have house sitters in my house? And maybe weighing that up, because all these stories that we're sharing throughout the summer, you know, you're meeting these amazing people that do an amazing job, and that is expanding out throughout the community. There's something about that value exchange in that respect. But many of us who do want to take these travels may have to look at renting your house out purely just to help pay the mortgage and cover your expenses and have it be a part of your income. I don't have a solution to offer for that. It's absolutely horrible that this has happened to you, Michelle, but, you know, is that
$2.5 grand down, I think, something like that at the moment, just for the last few weeks. And that doesn't count all of we have to repair the lawns because they put their horses on the lawn when it was really muddy, and there's holes everywhere, and there's just lots of stuff that's coming back to we're in the middle of cleaning it up now, so it's pretty horrible experience.
So I know you're in the depth of the horror part of this at the moment, but what would be a suggestion to anybody that maybe would be looking at taking a trip and keeping their home base and getting a rental income from that?
That they use, number one, make sure you have tenants insurance, landlord's insurance, which we were going to do, but then we had to, we couldn't just tack it onto our home and contents insurance. We had to stop that and then start this other insurance. And I was like, oh, it's all that paperwork and it's only for a year and they seem really nice and they're just down the road. And anyway, get that. Then there's use an agent. That's what everyone's been recommending to me, because actually the buck then stops with them. So when all of these nasty things happen, it's actually the agent who has to end up sorting it out. Doesn't mean it won't cost you something in the long run. And of course, there are plenty of fantastic tenants out there. It's not everyone would just been unlucky.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And just another point we have raised this in some of our discussions as well, particularly coming up for the summit, is there is always the potential of taking in a long-term house sitter who quite often will pay for the utilities. If you are able to manage, your mortgage repayments or anything like that, but know that you don't have to pay extra, then sometimes on a long-term, experience like that house sitters can actually chip in. Have either of you ever had to pay for any utilities with any of your house sits?
Yes, I've done it once in Istanbul.
Right.
Yeah, and that was agreed upon prior to.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Michelle,
yes, we have in Italy.
Yeah.
Again, that was going to be a longer term, and as it was, we were there for 2 months, something like 2 months. So 2 months. It was going to be 10 months. So we were. So that seemed to be okay. Yes. Although I would warn anyone that utilities in Italy are very, very expensive.
Well, I guess the other side of it is that maybe, if you're house sitting for a family, then the family has their usual family expenses. But when you've got, say, 5 of you, as opposed to just 2 of you or 3 of you, that obviously there's a consumption factor in there. So I think these are all just points to maybe for people to consider. We've actually heard of a family that has house sat with 9 children.
Wow, really?
Isn't that amazing?
That's really targeted.
Castles.
So you're going to take castles in France.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, it really is great. It's all hope.
It makes you guys just look so easy, you know.
You just breeze it. You can get a house
goes to show that it's possible.
Very cool. So I could just ask Ronnie one last question. Now that you're traveling and you're house sitting and you are doing some other types of travel, why house sitting over other types of travel? What's it giving you?
That actually gives you a little bit of stability.
Yep.
Okay. So it gives you a nice space, gives you a nice, when you're lacking the comfort of a pet or want some, in a way, it's just like, okay, so, find a house sit and everything else. So it's just like, I just find it easier in some cases to get an idea of what other places are like and the cultures and everything else when you're actually inside someone's home. Okay, more so than staying in like a Riyadh or something like that. They're more tourist oriented. Trying to get out of the tourist aspect is house sitting. It gives you far better feel for it, without a doubt.
Yeah, because often you're off the beaten track.
Oh, sorry, and Michelle, you're actually, even though you are back home and are cleaning up your house to move back in, you're going house sitting again.
We are. Now, I think I would choose house sitting over, if I have the choice, over just normal travel, just because of that community kind of feel, which I think Ronnie was talking about. And also we've found that every person that we've house sat for is now a friend. So it's actually a way of collecting friends and creating more of a bigger community as well. So I think you've all found that as well. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we're going to house sitting at Christmas time. We're going to go and look after a blue-tongued lizard.
Wow. Moving all of the family to go and look after a blue-tongued lizard. This is going to be a well looked after lizard.
Actually, Dylan might say, can I go to Melbourne as well, please?
So that should be fun. It's just for a few weeks in Melbourne. So still in Australia though. We're not leaving the country to do that. But in saying that, I don't know, it is a bit of a house sitting seems to catch to other people in the family. I know Nat and Jodie have had that experience. I'm not sure about Ronnie, but my dad and my stepmom have just been around Europe and through through England house sitting, and before they house sitted also in another part of Australia, at the top of Australia too, but they didn't start doing any of that until we went off. So it was like opening their eyes to the fact that house sitting was a possibility. So
we got Jodie's mum and dad house sitting, and my sister is where you are. Right now, Michelle in Tasmania, she's been there for quite 6 months or something now, so loving it. So complete change of lifestyle for them. So it does catch on, and it helps change. And I think that's why it's so great to talk to you guys, because you're taking your kids out on the road and you're giving them new experiences. But that just changes, for me, I think, changes generations. You know, their whole mindset now changes when they get married and have their own kids. You know, what do they do? And they, you know, travel is such a big thing. I mean, I really feel it's bringing cultures together and bringing people together around the world. I really think it's awesome what you guys are doing.
You know how Natasha would like to be a veterinarian, my oldest one. So she doesn't want to be a vet now, just a vet. Because we've done all that traveling, she wants to be a locum vet.
Okay.
So traveling.
So most people who want to be a vet, they just want to have a vet in their own spot. But she wants to be a traveling vet, one that looks after other people. So a bit like house sitting, but for vets.
House sitting vets.
That would be great on her bio.
Yeah, exactly. Great way to get house. This is going to pop out in any second. We can always just come back in and say hello, but otherwise I wanted to say thank you, and it's been awesome. You've shared so many tips. We'll put links there for everyone, and just get people to reach out. If you're looking at house sitting with kids, get in touch with these ladies.
Yeah, read their blogs. Like. They got some great stories to share, and very inspiring. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right.
Bye.
See you in the world somewhere else.
Bye.